Hello and welcome to World of Tanks with Dsann. In today's video we'll be doing a slight different video. It's not going to be purely a replay or a tutorial, it's going to be a mix. And I'll be talking about, in the tutorial part, I'll be talking about weak spots and what to look for in tanks when you're shooting at weak spots, as well as the different ammo types. For the replay, it'll be a nice Type 59 battle I had in the previous patch. Very good game. Hopefully we'll be able to show that even if you're towards the bottom of the list in the matchmaking, you can still do good, and I will put an annotation to that around now. So, moving on to the weak spots part first, because it's easier to explain than the whole ammo thing, because that's going to take a while. Most tanks have weak spots. Now, why would you care about them? Surely you can just penetrate them all the time, right? Well, as I've explained in my armor tutorial, armor can be quite nasty to penetrate. Sometimes you need a weak spot. In most tanks, weak spots are hard to hit, but if you can, many of them also have some that are easier to hit. Now, one weak spot that is prevalent through most tanks would be this lower plate here. Because unlike what you would think, tanks actually do have varying thicknesses of armor. So this, for example, is not the 130 it says here. Only this upper plate here, called the upper glacis, is 130. This is actually only 76 millimeters thick, and thus, as you can assume, is penetrated easily, although they're harder to penetrate at close range due to the angles, because, you have to be pointing down, especially if you're in a taller tank. But from like 100 meters and out, this is the prime shot plates to shoot if you can. Now, if they're hull down, that's a different story. Then you might want to look for hatches or any other like obvious weak spots. Shooting viewports like these, don't waste your time. You're just going to do external damage and not actually damage the tank. This should be a weak spot. I don't know. I've never tried to shoot there on a Carnarvon, to be fair, because I always shoot for the lower plate because it'll actually damage an ammo rack. But assuming this was a weak spot, you would not only just penetrate the tank, you would also damage or kill the driver. Turret rings are also a nice weak spot. Generally, they all have them, although they're very hard to hit due to their small size. But this can also lock up a turret. Now, if you want to look at the reverse of a weak spot, gun mantlets are a bad place to shoot generally. They are thicker. If you see here, this adds to the thickness of the front, whereas this plate is only 165 millimeters thick. Only. That's actually quite decent, but yeah. But this adds quite a bit, and it's also very rounded, as you can see. But not all angled armor like that, if you have angles inwards, can be a bad thing as well. If we look at my T-34, you would think, oh, that's nice, that'll bounce lots of shots, it's angled already. Yeah, that's not necessarily the case. This is what's called a shot trap, and these are extremely dangerous if people know about them, although it does require some bad luck on your part, or luck if you're shooting at someone with this. Basically, it means if a shot comes in here, it can ricochet off and down into the top of your tank. So, on the side here, we have 127 millimeters armor. Not all tanks can penetrate that. If you can penetrate it, it might bounce off here, though, and hit this, which has much thinner armor. How much? I don't know. But if you bounce into that, obviously you're going to do damage, and you might potentially damage an engine or a crew or fuel tanks. And this is just something you should be aware about if you have, like, an overhang. Nah, it doesn't really work on that tank. Let's see. I think the Hellcat has one. Yeah. Obviously, the Hellcat's paper thin already, but if you should bounce something off here, it could still bounce down into here. And that is actually a problem on the new Chinese Tier 8, I heard, can be a shell trap in the front, in that you hit the mantlet and it bounces down into the top hull, which is paper thin. Now, onto the ammo types. There are 5 basic, well, I say basic, there are 5 ammo types. You have your basic, AP, and high explosive. These are generally your normal credit rounds, if you will. If you look at the Hellcat, standard armor piercing, and these both cost credits. Armor, and then you have 3 different gold ammos. Sorry. You have the APCR, armor piercing composite rigid, which has the ridiculously high penetration compared to your stock ammo. It also has higher normalization in that when you hit the armor, the shell will dig in and angle a bit less, so it'll reduce the effective angle. And APCR has better normalization than AP, whereas the high explosive variants do not have it at all. Now, AP and APCR both need to hit to penetrate, obviously, or penetrate to do damage, and they lose penetration over range, APCR more so than AP. Now, we have 3 different kinds of high explosive. I'm going to look at my Leopard for this because it has 2 of them. You have your high explosive and your high explosive anti-tank. Now, at first glance, you may notice a big difference. This has more damage, but a lot less penetration. This has extremely good penetration, but it has the same damage as the APCR, which is standard on the Leopard. The Leopard's gold ammo is the heat. If we look at it here, you can see that the heat costs 8 golds a shot, which is actually somewhat of the cheaper. I've seen some up to 10 or 11 is the most expensive I know of that I've seen so far. And basically, high explosive anti-tank has very good penetration, but it is very bad against spaced armor, because it will hit the spaced armor, explode, or penetrate that, and then explode on the inside, which will do no damage, or very little. High explosive just smacks on the outside and explodes most of the time, unless it penetrates, which, well, with, if you look here at the penetration, for average penetration on this is 53. That's not even going to be enough to penetrate this thing from the front. But if it does go through and does it full damage, it does hurt. Obviously, 480 average, pardon me, average damage, 480 there, is very painful, but you're rarely going to see that. Now, when a high explosive round hits a hull, it'll immediately, if it then doesn't penetrate, it'll still explode and do damage. Obviously, it also has splash damage, as you can see, explosion radius. So you can hit near them and you can still do some damage. But when you hit, it basically sends out a cone towards the tank. Like, I don't know the exact mechanics, because it's quite complex from what I could figure out. But it basically sends a cone of damage in towards the tank. If it finds a way in, it then does the damage inside the tank, but you will automatically lose, at minimum, half the damage. So we're talking 240 damage just by bouncing, or, you know, hitting on the outside. Then it's also further reduced by the thickness of the armor of the tank. And basically, high explosive can not be so viable later you're on, but early game it can be very viable depending on the size of gun. Now, there is a last type which I am obliged to mention, although I have not actually used it, and that's on this thing, the FE215B1A3, which is a tier 10 tank destroyer for the Brits. It has a monstrously good 275mm penetration. Obviously, the AP rounds having significantly better, but the damage is insane. It's basically a high explosive round meets a high explosive anti-tank round. And if I'm not mistaken, it's actually a shell that impacts plastic explosives and then basically just shapes that charge towards the tank. It's a little bit weird, but yeah. Anyway, when you hit that, if you penetrate, you do 1700 damage. That's a dead Leopard 1, or Leopard Prototype A, sorry. That's a dead Carnarvon in one hit, and it will go through Carnarvon or Leopard like nothing. Heck, it can go through the IS-3 like it's nothing if you get a good shot. But Heat and Hesh, to a degree, are both vulnerable to angled or bouncing off, as I'm aware, and also to spaced armor, especially Heat. I think they're both pretty vulnerable to heat, so you can hit here. Tracks, remember, count as spaced armor, and you'll do no damage with heat because, you know, it'll explode on the outside and just harmlessly bounce off the inside or whatever. With Hesh, you have extremely good explosion radius. I don't think I can see that because I don't have the tank available, but basically it has a really good explosion radius, so you'll explode on the outside and still do 700 damage or whatever, depending on the tank you're hitting. So, just, you might want to read up more on this later, then I recommend you go look at the wiki and obviously figure out where weak spots are. As I said, there are many. If you look at the Type 59, for example, you see hatch here and a hatch here. Both are weak spots. When you can't penetrate here, try hitting here. And, you know, so forth, like the IS-3. Bounce off here, here just zero penetration hit, zero damage penetration, and that you'll penetrate here and just do nothing because it's basically just a spaced armor plate there. This is a weak spot. These here are weak spots. And basically just anything that looks like it can be a weak spot will probably be it, although you might have to experiment some. Again, hatches here. Here's a really big driver's hatch weak spot, which should be plainly obvious. Again, lower plate can be an issue. Some tanks are smart enough to have an ammo rack behind there, and yes, I say that very sarcastically. The German tanks tend to have a transmission or gearbox in the front which can catch fire very easily. So the Tiger 2, for example, or the low premium can both catch fire from being shot in the lower plate. The Carnarvon can be ammo racked. I've had that happen to me a few times. It's not very fun. So just bear that in mind. Try and figure that out. I'd recommend you read up on that yourself, as it will take me far too long to explain. And now I think we shall go take a look at my Type 59 replay, which is again on Sand River, one of my most commonly played maps, and I hope you enjoy. And here we are yet again on Sand River, as my first replay was also on this map. I have mixed feelings about this map, and this video is really just to show that no matter where you're on the team list, you can do good. Now, some people would say, see this, you'd see me down here, and they'd be going, oh my god, tier 9s, we've lost, doom, doom, gloom. Please don't do that. Remember, you can always do something, even if it's loading high premium ammo and just throwing that at people. Remember, you always have a chance. So, let's see how I do, shall we?
Let's go.
So I'm going to speed this part up because, well, it's boring watching me drive to position. Now, I apologize for the sound in this replay. It doesn't really work for some reason, but I had to use a mod, basically, that lets me run old replays because, obviously, their game is playing 8.8, not 8.7, so there's that. Now, I'm teamed up with my buddy Uruchi, as you saw in my armor penetration tutorial. He's in his artillery, so he will be supporting me the entire game. And here we spot our first victim of the day, a Pershing tier 8 American heavy medium tank. Sorry, it's actually a heavy in real life. So we're gonna pop a few shots into him. Oh, the replay thing has gone wonky. Oh, okay, that was weird. Okay, I'm just gonna have to lock to this view, I'm afraid. Oh, yeah, I apologize for the bug there. But we pound him, our buddy in the artillery sends a few shells. Now you're noticing I'm firing my APCR because I had that loaded and I forgot to remove it. I should just use standard AP ammo, as this thing is more than capable of penetrating that. Now, in this part of the match, I'm just basically sitting here providing spots for artillery and basically just trying to stay safe for my team. Because a dead tank is a bad tank. Which kind of says itself. So I peek up here, try and spot, go back down because I know there might be a tier 9 around here. I'm speeding this up again because, well, this is kind of a slow part. You can see here that, our team are holding off here pretty well, and me and the team here are pushing up pretty well. Now I push up, and let's just see how this works out for us. Rolling. Guys up on the hill, we have a tier 8, not 2 tier 8, sorry, and a tier 9. I do apologize for slight derpiness there. And here we see another target for us, a tier 7, so, oh joy, a Tiger P. Now, thing to note about the Tiger P is the front plate down here is 200mm thick. You never want to shoot that in any tank up close. You want to shoot them, for God's sake. Okay, you want to shoot him at the turret from the front, or in the side if possible. You see, even that can be tricky sometimes because he has a rather thick mantlet. Now me, I make the mistake of going in a little too rushing in, but I have backups, so they luckily help me, and boom, he dies to an IS-8, and the IS died to the IS-6, so still alive, and then I take a hit from what I believe would be that Yak Tiger over there. Rolling around. I see the IS, but I figured these guys would go get it. And then I see the VK4502. And this is a tier 9. And I kind of get a little oh shit moment in a bit, but for now I just try and do my best. And as you see, even in a tier 8, I can penetrate at spots, and this is me using weak spots for all it's worth. Obviously the accuracy of the gun is Russian, so not expect the best. So here we see me trying to close the distance because this thing is a brawler. It excels at circling around enemies, especially slower enemies like the VK there is kind of slow turret. So, and here we see me. Boom. And I aim specifically for the rear drive wheel of the tank, which is that wheel here, which will track you, as well as this is the highest chance of tracking you. As you see, I keep pounding him. Artillery is firing at him. He's basically a dead man walking.
Penetration.
Now, as you see, I check to make sure the VK doesn't kill me, and he dies. And now, Aruchi's making a pun. He does that sometimes. I remember I was on Skype with him, so we coordinate rather well. And this is something that most people wouldn't do, I think, or they do it wrong, I feel.
Enemy armor is
For
hit.
first part, you see that I see his turret is pointing away from me, so I decide, good shot. Let me shoot him. And here you see me trying to track him, because Uruchi was saying, track him for me, please. And, well, let's just enjoy this. I won't talk over this part.
Critical hit.
And here we see me using my superior maneuverability to my advantage. Something maneuver I've practiced a lot is light tank driver, by the way. And here he managed to actually hit me. Look at that health. 4 health. I thought I was so dead here, but I managed to track him, and boom! Uruchi with the save. So, there are 3 tanks left. I have 4 health. I've done, well, we don't know how much damage I've done because my mods aren't working in this, but we've won this. There's no doubt in my mind at this point that we'd won. So I decided to do the only thing I could. Rush in and try and help finish the team off, enemy team off. We managed to put 1 more into that Centurion. Maybe 1 more. And then we put 2 into the Centurion, and he pretty much just melts because Centurions have rather paper armor, and that was pretty much the last kill in the game. Or the last shot I do any damage with. I believe all my shots missed the T-54, but shall we take a look? Yeah, and a miss. And then he dies any second now. Boom. So, yeah, as you saw, decent match. I actually survived the entire thing with 4 health left. And it really just goes to show that anyone can still do good, even though you're not necessarily the top of your team. And when you see the results, I think, well, the results speak for themselves. So, let's go see the results, shall we? And here we see the battle report screen. As you see, I made a quite impressive 7,000 XP, a very good 145,000 credits, and as you can see, I did quite a bit of shooting and damaging of people. Obviously, this is a 3 times experience win, so that is obviously quite a bit, but still not a bad result when you see the total I got after my premium effect kicks in. 145,000 credits is very good, but considering this is a premium tank and it does get a bonus to credit earning, that's good, but still only not the best it can do in these kind of tanks. If you look at the team scores, well, let me just do sort of by damage here. Yeah. If you look at the top guys on either team was me in a tier 8, tier 9, and this is a bit surprising as well, a tier 7 tank destroyer at 2 tier 7 tank destroyers at 3rd and 4th, but I mean, look at that. Tier 9, tier 9, tier 8, tier 8. I did more damage than, almost more damage than these 2 together. And these 2 together. My experience, well, 1,580 base. That's before any modifiers or anything. That's just what I got for the match. Closest was our E75 with 1,500 damage and 3 kills, so. I mean, he did quite a bit of tanking, though, so that's really where he got his experience, I would imagine. And if we look at the detail report, we can see that I got 2,300 with my premium, which is actually only about, well, it's under 100 points needed for beating my old record, which is 2443 or something like that. And obviously triple, you get 7,000. Now, my premium payout with credits obviously is 145,000. You lose some because I pay for my premium ammo in credits instead of gold, which is an option. I forgot to mention that earlier, but it is an option. And obviously repair for losing almost all my health, which still left me with a neat profit of 89,700. So if we look at the damage I did was 4,200. I hit them 21 times out of 23 shots. I have 18 penetrations, which is, well, not bad, but obviously considering what I was shooting at, that's kind of decent. The hits received, 8 shots I took. I was penetrated 4 times, and I bounced 4 shots. All this totaled in the potential damage of 2,200, which is kind of funny when you think about it when a tank has only 1,300 health. I detected 3 enemies. I damaged 5, which is 1 short of a Confederate medal. I only killed 1, but the spotting damage in combination with my actual damage led me to get all the XP I did, because these 2 are very important for XP earning. More so than just a kill. If you do 90% of the damage, you'll get 90% of the XP for that kill. Doesn't matter if you kill it or not. As I said, damage upon detecting is 2,000. That's because I was spotting a lot. Even got a few capture points, although really 18 points isn't that much. So yeah, and I'm just going to hop back into the garage and I'll finish off there. And here we are back in the garage. Just as a quick recap, remember, weak spots are, as I hopefully showed in that video, extremely important, and they can allow you to take down tanks that are a tier or even 2 or more higher than yours a lot easier. It makes it more overcomable, as a tank that might not be able to take down, say, a tier 10 and tier 8 might be able to if you use weak spots. Please bear that in mind. Remember, know what your tank can do, know where your weak spots are, and you will be you'll be much better off for it. And of course, the usual tip of always keeping an eye on the min-map is never a bad idea. Also, I would suggest reading up on, if you want to know more about how the ammo works, I will leave a link in the description for the wiki. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, favorite, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.